All right. Well, we are live. Really excited for this combo. Let's go ahead and bring Nicole on. This is unique because most of the previous conversations were with someone who is like a best-selling author or someone who's contributed to, one of the grab books or whatnot. But this conversation is going to be a little unique, a little different in that sense. So let's bring Nicole on. Super excited. Let's see. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
So I have an echo right
So
now.
I have
Is
an
there
echo
any
right
way
now.
that you
Is
can
there
plug
any
in
way
headphones?
that you could plug in headphones?
Let's see if that makes a difference.
Is
Oh,
that better?
I think so. Yes, that's
Okay, cool.
perfect. Thank you. That's perfect.
Uh-huh.
That's dodged that bullet. A couple of these conversations that was happening, and I'm like, all I heard was an echo the whole time. So, so pumped for this combo. Thanks for accepting my invitation to, have this conversation. And for those of you that, follow Nicole or follow me, and you saw the reason why we wanted this combo is because a couple weeks ago, Nicole put a post up on Facebook about just a parent's perspective. She was traveling to Colorado and then, traveled to Atlanta or vice versa for our Cutco award ceremony. And her son, Steven, works in my office as a Cutco rep. And it was really cool to hear her parents' perspective. So I shared it, and I shared it with all of our Cutco managers, and there was like comments of like, "This is awesome!" Like, "Wow, I wish more parents thought like this. This is so cool." And I was like, "Why not just have a conversation and just kind of see where it goes?" So thank you again, Nicole, for being willing to have a combo and just kind of seeing where it is. So I'm curious more than anything. I'm sure some other people are curious too. Were you raised in a personal growth business environment like growing up, or was that like developed through time and then you're like, wow, this personal growth self-development stuff is like real, so I'm gonna, you and Chris are gonna do it as a couple for your kids? Or like, how did the self-development aspect, like how did that trickle into your life? I'm curious.
I didn't really know anything about self-development until I would probably say about 8 years ago. Growing up, we had a very, standard family. It was okay. My parents always struggled to make ends meet. And, to see that struggle when Chris and I got married at a very young age, when we started coming into the personal growth, we said, this is great, and we need to teach our kids this because this is stuff that I wasn't taught as a child.
Mm. So that was a conscious decision, not because of how it's almost like opposite. It's like because I wasn't, raised with personal growth, then you see the benefit of it. You said 8 years ago is when you,
Yeah,
so this is pretty new then,
it really is.
because your
Yeah.
oldest Steven is 18. So his first 10 years of his life was pretty messed up then, huh? I'm just kidding. That's awesome.
I hope
I'm
not.
teasing. That's really funny. I see he's watching, so that's why it's funny. But that's great. So what got you introduced to personal growth? Was it through selling real estate, or was it through something else? Or
Yeah, so I joined Keller Williams as an agent after Chris and I have always been very entrepreneurial. We had a few businesses. I started as an appraiser. The market crashed. We kind of lost everything. Somebody said, go into real estate as a realtor. I got to Keller Williams, and they had these programs that, teach you about all this personal growth. And, they pushed you to read books. I hated reading as a kid. But what I realized is I hated reading the stuff that I was told I had to read because I don't do well when somebody tells me to do something. However, when I'm sitting in a class and they say, read this book because it's going to make you a better person or it's going to help you in your business, then I would pick up that book and I couldn't put it down.
hmm.
And then from there, I just kind of took it and applied it, everything that I was reading in my life. And, Chris was on board because he loved the personal development as well. And from there, I think because we are not the parents that go into an office and talk about business with our kids in the other room. If we're having an argument, we argue in front of the kids. We make up in front of the kids. We talk about business struggles in front of the kids. So they were always around those conversations too.
Wow, that is I'm very curious on that, because that's new. That's a philosophy that I'm not familiar with. I'm curious the philosophy, if you don't mind, if it's not too presumptuous. I'm very curious on that, as far as the arguments and the makeup in front of the kids.
And I'm not a perfect parent,
but you've done a hell of a job. If you haven't met those,
I have no schooling.
I'm just curious. More than anything.
I think at first it was more natural because Chris and I are very passionate about what we do. And even as a couple, when we fight, now I'm not talking like we're not throwing stuff at each other when we're having a disagreement. We'll have it right in the kitchen. I don't agree with you because of this. And he'll say, well, I don't agree with that. And then, sometimes it ends with, I'm done with this conversation, and we walk away. And then, when we're coming back, it's like, I'm sorry, I overreacted. I understand your perspective. Let's work through this to find, we're tugging on the same end of the rope, is what my husband always says. So that's kind of how we reconcile the fights.
So mature, because I witnessed way too many arguments growing up with my parents, but I never saw that last component. All I saw was the arguments, typically over money, and that was it. So how many arguments as a kid did I see just the argument side of it, where I never saw the reconcile, like the tugging on the same end of the rope. I love that. And I interpret that as like, we're trying to get the same outcome. Like we're trying to get the same outcome. We're just trying to do it a different way. How could we think together towards, whatever it is that we're disagreeing on in the first place? So what a mature approach to a disagreement. And I think it's fantastic that your kids are able to see that and experience that. And also I think it's amazing as a couple that you're able to do that as well. So that's great.
And they all don't go that well, but we try. They never do.
But it's the approach. It's the intentionality. It's very intentional. It's like, hey, at least we have a system for disagreements. And if the system fails, at least we can recover because we have something in place. How many couples and how many parents don't even have a system? They don't have a structure. They don't have a format that they could even like call home to revisit. So that's fantastic. That's really rich. What really jumped out at me, I don't know about you, or if anybody else is listening to this, I saw New Year's Eve vision boards, burning your fears. Like what? Okay, so I want to hear about this because that's so cool. Like that, growing up, are you kidding me? Like I couldn't wait for my parents to like get out of the house so we could throw a party. Like that's what like New Year's was. New Year's was like, yeah, balls drop party, let's go. And I saw your Facebook or Chris's Facebook, Steven, someone's Facebook of you guys burning your fears or something. Talk to us about this, because has this been a tradition for a long time? Was that the first time ever doing it? Where did you learn that? I'm super curious on that.
We've done it a few times actually with big changes in our life. And just a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we ran across a group called One Life Fully Lived, and they're out on the West Coast. And we flew out to a couple of their conferences, and this was something that they did, although they didn't burn it. You crumbled it up and threw it in the garbage because we were indoors. So we thought, what a great idea to do with the kids. So our middle son was struggling in 8th grade, and we were kind of struggling with the school. And the first time we did it was he was finished with 8th grade. He was never going back to the school again. So that summer we had taken the boys on a month trip, an RV trip. So we packed everybody in an RV. We went out west. And to start the trip off, we had him bring one of his uniform shirts, and we burned it. And it was kind of like a cleansing thing of saying, you know what, you're done with this. Let's move on to something new. And the reaction that we got from him was really good. So we thought, this is cool. Our kids will actually participate in these things that we asked them to do. So New Year's, my husband brought out, like, we didn't even really plan it. He just brought out some paper and he said, all right, let's do it. It's a new year.
Wow, that's cool. So that was Ethan that you did the jersey with?
Yeah.
Ethan, yeah.
Hmm.
That's fantastic. What kid doesn't want to burn some stuff up? I mean, you know, but
Especially the
oh
boys.
yeah, and but the principle behind it still lands with them, which is fantastic. And for those of you guys that are just joining us, this woman right here, Nicole, personal growth, self-development, sales, real estate, you know, systematic arguer, right? But here's what's really fascinating, and I didn't put two and two together. This is the last point, and then I'll transition to a different topic. Is you also challenge yourself personally, not just in the professional arena, not just in the parent arena, that you went and did the swim in San Francisco Bay, the swim from San Francisco to Alcatraz. Is that right? Tell me about that experience. I'm very curious because that was this past summer.
Yeah.
And Steven was kind of telling me about it. He's just like, yeah, my mom's pretty badass, you know. I was like, yeah, she must be. She's gonna freaking swim, you know, from San Francisco to Alcatraz. So tell me a little bit about that, of like the journey of going through the personal growth, the mindset. Like, how did you kind of get into that space too?
So I've been doing triathlons for quite a while, maybe 6 or 7 years. And you know, you usually start with a 5K, you know, run, and then you go 10K and you kind of go up. Well, I did a half Ironman a couple years ago, and then I was kind of like, okay, like I'm kind of bored with this. So I have a friend that lives out there, Yoko, and we were talking about it because she had done the race, and she kind of tried to convince me. She almost like peer pressured me into doing it. So I signed up, and it's a lottery system. So, you know, you put your name in, and, you know, there's not a real big chance that you get picked. Well, sure enough, I got picked. So, you know, we kind of trained together to do it. And what it is, it's a triathlon. So they take you out on this ferry and drop you in the water right in front of Alcatraz Island. And the water's 55 degrees. There's about 2,000 people jumping off the boat at the same time. And the waves are very hard or very high. The current's very strong. It was probably the most mentally challenging race I've ever done. I don't think I did very good. Somebody says I need to go back and do a redemption race, but I finished. But it was hard.
Wow. So, well, finishing number one, that's the point of the race. The point of the race is to finish, and you did. When I heard Steven kind of tell, I love hearing your version, by the way. Your version is fantastic. So that's incredible because I didn't know it was a triathlete. I thought it was just, you know, just swim to Alcatraz and then they pick you up in a boat and then like, you know, that's about it. But so you're telling me you did the bike, the run and the swim all around Alcatraz, and you swam to the mainland through. Isn't there like
Yeah.
sharks in this water? Isn't there like, like what?
There have been. I went out a couple months before to do a training swim because I was kind of in my head about the swim because I really didn't know what to expect. And when we were out there was a bunch of people on the boat, people that do the swim like every weekend. These people are crazy. It's funny. And
55
so
degrees.
we finished this 55 degrees. We finished the swim and we're on the boat coming back to shore, and we were talking to some of the people that do this every weekend. And I said, aren't you scared of the sharks? Like, I was a little bit worried about it. And he says, no, we're actually worried about the sea lions because the sea lions have been biting. And I thought, oh my goodness, like, I didn't even think about sea lions.
What? Okay, I'm so glad I brought that up because that's incredible, because that's a perfect example of like the mental toughness. Like you said, like I had to get myself emotionally and mentally ready because all the things that you're involved in, being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner, being a community leader. I mean, all these things take self-awareness, and for you to challenge your self-awareness intentionally, it's only going to help show up in other parts of your life, which is fantastic. And I love that. If you could go back to you when you were, you said you and Chris got married young parents, or, you know, young married couple. Did you do anything in the beginning stages, like to create a foundation? Because I know some of the audience that follows me and some of the people listening are more of a little bit of the younger, like mid-20s, starting their families. Did anything happen? Like, did you guys do anything in particular to create these principles or foundations of like, hey, we come first, like, or anything like along those lines, or like protecting the kingdom, protecting the household, like we're going to work hard, we're going to do this, like any foundational conversation or principles that kind of laid the groundwork for what you guys have built together during this last 18 years, 20 years?
Yeah, I think when we first got married or we first started dating, I was 19. I got married when I just turned 21, and we both kind of Chris came from a very, very tough childhood, where he literally went into the Navy when he was right out of high school because he had nowhere to live. So after he got in the Navy, that's when we met, and we kind of got together and said, this is kind of what we want to build. We want to give our kids a better life than we had. So I remember having a conversation. I think we were getting ready to get married, and you get one of those little books that you write in, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years or whatever. And we wrote down everything that we wanted to accomplish. And looking back, it's kind of like goal setting now, like we do now. And everything that we wrote down, we actually accomplished early. And then we were looking at each other going, now what do we do? Because we set our goals so low because, our background was, from, Chris not really having any parental support in his life. And, I was kind of a little on my own in my teens.
I love that. Do you still have that book, the five-year?
I do.
Oh, so cool. So just to clarify, so you guys get married young, he leaves the Navy, and you're like, okay, we want to kind of almost like a rags to riches type of story. My dad tells me this all the time because he was like, he grew up with bed bugs and roaches, and he just didn't have the parental guidance. So as a kid, I always wanted that parental guidance from him. But the biggest gift that my dad gave me was what he could, which is ambition and drive and determination and dedication. Like all those, that was his wheelhouse. Love, compassion, warmth, care. I didn't really get that from dad because he never got that. So how could he give something he never got? And I think that's happens with a lot of people. It's like we feel like we have a need, like we need something, and if we don't get it from our parents, then therefore we'll just never have it. And what's beautiful about your story that you just shared is that you and Chris were like, we didn't have that. We didn't get necessarily that from our parents, but we're going to create it. We're going to build it on our own. And we're going to trailblaze our own lifestyle to provide a different legacy for our family. And it just takes a lot of courage to think big and to map out goals and then say, now what? Instead of saying, we hit it, we arrived, we finished, we hit these 5-year goals, we're done. I love the question, now what? So I'm curious on the question now. What is the now what? You have a beautiful home. You have 3 awesome boys. You and Chris are doing great in the business arena. You guys travel. You have a great. I just saw your freaking post with Nathan. Are you kidding me? That was so amazing. Shout out to Nathan for asking for some money. By the way, I bought that book for my 12-year-old niece. So I just bought it. I just mailed her a copy. She'll be getting it today. And just such a cool, just so cool. I love the application of personal growth into the business, into your household. So now what? What is now what for you and Chris and for the boys at this point? Just curious.
Yeah, so we love giving back, and we always have. It's something that lights us up. So my big why in my life is for us to make enough money that we can give back. Like my goal in life is to give $1 million away. So we do have a charity that we're involved in called Veterans Alternatives. So we do give a portion of each of our commission checks to that charity. But more so, I love giving back to, we have a lot of young people in our real estate brokerage, and I love training them to be better versions of them and for them to go out and make money. And, I kind of feel like they're my work kids. So I feel like I get a lot of training with this, parenting role that I have between, the office and at home. So it's just more about giving back and, how can we serve others and help them get into the real estate business and be successful, because it's a tough business.
And working with these, when you say young people, what's the age range that you're kind of working with your agents and with your team?
They're between 24 and 30. I think 30 is our oldest agent.
Such an important time frame, because it's like some of them went to college, some of them didn't, I'm sure. And they get to that point in that 24 to 30 range where, I don't know if you experienced this with some of your people that work with you, but it's like you just said, the now what? It's like, all right, I have this piece of paper that says I'm really qualified for the business world, but now what? I'm not enjoying the business world, or I'm not enjoying that field that I said I was going to go into, or I don't know, I feel unfulfilled. Or they're like, I didn't go to college, and it's like I traveled instead. Or it's like, man, I'm kind of bored now. Like all the variety that I experienced in my early 20s and late teens, all the partying and traveling, all this stuff. It's like, now what? I like really want, again, I want this fulfillment. I want satisfaction. I want more out of life. Or, you know, like they experience this void, like this gap, that 24 to 30-year-old, that 6-year gap that you just said is so impressionable of what's going to set them up for their 30s, and that foundation sets them up for their 40s. And sometimes when they hit that 30 mark and that threshold, they're just like, oh, this is just how it's going to be. So therefore, they settle, and you're developing them at that impressionable age before they decide if they're going to, you know, settle, or if they're going to create a new foundation for their future. Do you find that to be any of that to be true? And any piggybacks off of any of those concepts or those thoughts with the 24 to 30-year-olds?
Yeah, I think especially the ones coming out of college, because I feel like sometimes, and this is probably where some people aren't going to agree, but that's okay. I feel sometimes that these kids are pushed to go to college, and they really shouldn't go to college. And they get out, and you know, they're back at home working at Starbucks, and they've learned absolutely nothing, but they do have that piece of paper. So we do have a few kids that, you know, graduated college, and, you know, we sit down with them, and we take them through the process that we were taken through. You know, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Where are you going? Where do you want to be? You know, what lights you up? That's the most important thing, right? Because if you're not doing something that you like, it's just work.
Yeah. And for some people, that's really important because it satisfies their need for security. You know, that's our primal instinct is, am I going to survive? So having that security, that safety, that certainty is really important. And that's what they feel like they get with the degree. And in some cases that is true. You know, that degree does provide them security. They'll get that secure job. They'll get that, you know, that safety outcome. And it's really important for some people. Like I have my engineering degree, but I'm not an engineer. I learned a lot through the process, but I could have done what I'm doing right now without the degree. The degree was a good stepping stone. It was really a good process, but I agree with you that college is not necessarily for everyone because they get the debt, because they're going to graduate with a piece of paper saying they're qualified to go work at Starbucks because they're in transition, but they have this debt of $30, $40, $50,000 on up, that working at the job that pays them $25,000 to $35,000 a year to pay off, you know, double that. It's tough to create the foundation. Like, is that a good investment? Now, if they're going into the medical field, if they're going to be an attorney, if they're going into like something you need
Right.
that degree for, I 100% support it. So I'm curious, you know, Nicole, Steven is a good example of this because he's 18, just graduated high school. And he says, I want to own businesses. I want to go invest in real estate. I want to be the boss. I want to be a CEO type and, you know, entrepreneur. I'm assuming you and Chris kind of had a point in your conversations where it's like, college is you don't need to go to college to do that, Steven. Like, if I'm Steven, I'm looking at all the people around me and my classmates saying college, 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 college. And then you guys are like, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? What is this all about? And it's like, you really don't need to go into $30, $40, $50,000 in debt and for 4 years of your life to study something that you could start now. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I would love for you to speak to how that all kind of unfolded during that time frame of, you know, because he's your oldest, and I'm sure you're going to experience that with Nathan and Ethan at some point too. But
It was hard. It was a hard conversation to have both with Chris and Steven because we were, you know, I was brought up where you had to go to college to be successful. I didn't go to college because I didn't have the opportunity, and neither did Chris. So once, you know, over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, we start meeting some very high net worth people and realize that a lot of them didn't go to college. And when Steven was a junior, we kind of started talking about it. Well, what do you want to do when you grow up? What does life look like after graduation? And being a junior, I don't think you really I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So,
Amen.
you know, Steven played football, and a lot of his football buddies were getting scholarships to college to play football. And Steven probably could have gone that route, but we sat down with him and he loved playing football. And we said, Steven, if you go to college to play football, you can play football, but you still have to go to class. And he says, I don't want to do that. So we had a Florida prepaid college, and we said, look, you can either go to college and use this, or we can cash it out and give you the cash, and you can use it for whatever you want to use it for. And after, you know, talking about it and thinking about it, and then in the March before he graduated, he joined you. He said, I don't think I want to go to college. And I don't regret not pushing him to do it. I think I'm super proud of what he's doing right now, and he's learning. What he's learning from you guys is the same stuff that I would have taught him, but he's not on my payroll, which is awesome. And number two, you tell him a lot of the things that I tell him, but he listens to you more than he listens to me because I'm his mom. So, I mean, I couldn't be happier with the decision for him not to go to college.
Now, he's still young, and he's only been working for Cutco and Vector Marketing since March last year. So it's been, you know, it's only been a short period of time. What have you noticed in Steven in that short period of time? Because you said he listens to us more than you, and, you know, he's learning these things. What have you noticed, some of the things that he has been learning, or have you, you know, that is noticeable that you've seen in just the 10 months that he's been working for us, 11 months?
He's learned so much about personal development, even more than what we're teaching him. He's learning how to run a business, which is amazing, because even if you don't go into business, to know how a business is run and to know about the expenses, the marketing, you know, what actually goes into it it's priceless. And you know, we're not paying for him to learn any of that, and he's making money, which is great. He comes home with some really cool stuff. He's actually taught us a few things to implement into our team. And I think one day, I don't know if Chris and I we were having a heated discussion in the kitchen, and he said, I learned something today. And he said, this is how you breathe. I think we need to do a breathing exercise. And he's like doing this hand motion, and we're all three sitting in the kitchen doing this breathing, so everybody calms down. So he's actually teaching us a lot.
Some SRI.
From the stuff that he's learning.
Nice. Steven teaching some SRI breathing techniques. That's expensive stuff. All right. That cost us a lot of money to learn. All right. So you got to keep that on. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So shout out to Epic Impact and Abundance for teaching that to some Cutco people. So that's really cool. So yeah, that's really fantastic. So between breathing, you said some of the other, I'm going to shamelessly ask you to plug some of the specifics that you've noticed, because let's face it, there are some haters out there. There are haters on Vector Marketing. There's haters on what we do. They say we, you know, some of the people say that we recruit these kids and take advantage of them, and we just want them to, you know, sell for us and sell to their parents, and that's it. And then we're done with them and send them to the streets and spend for yourself. Like the stereotypes of our business is just so absolutely silly. About what makes us a scam is that we take these young people and then we manipulate them, and then we force them to go sell expensive knives to their family and friends. Like that's what some people think about, which is crazy about me, because I feel like I'm a pretty stand-up guy, and that if they would think that I would do that for the last 15 years, like that's, you know, kind of insane. And that our company would be around for 70 years doing something like that, they probably would have come and shut us down by now. But that's like some of the stereotypes, and you're obviously seeing the truth about what our young people learn. And I want to shamelessly try to draw that out of you, of like, what are some of those specific things that you and Chris have learned? So you learned some breathing stuff, or some of the things that Steven has brought home. You said budgeting or money management, or, you know, expense management, or running a business. I'm curious, you know, anything else that kind of shows up for you from the parent's vantage point, any calls that you hear him on, or any, you know, any meetings that he, you know, Zoom meetings or video meetings that you've overheard or seen, or, you know, anything else that kind of shows up for you. I'm very, very curious. I'm sure other people are too.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, when now we've known of Cutco before Steven even joined because we bought the product as real estate agents, and then we do have a few friends or acquaintances that are doing some really high level stuff years after they've sold Cutco. So when Steven first joined, to be real honest, a few times Chris and I looked at ourselves and we were like, we're gonna have to get this guy Mike on the phone. Like, what is going on over there? Because Steven would come home all excited and he's like, I could do this assistant manager position, and I'm like, great, how much are you making? And he's like, nothing. And I'm like, okay. So we talked around it a little bit, and then we said, you know what, we're just going to trust the process. We're going to sit back. I mean, he's only 17 at the time. What could go wrong, right? He's making money. He's selling Cutco. So after a while, I started seeing him come home with like notepads and journals, and he's journaling. He's 17, and he's journaling. Who does that? He's watching, instead of on Netflix, instead of watching some, crappy, document or series or whatever, he's learning stuff about, or he's watching these motivational videos, all because you guys are giving him those tools and saying, hey, you need to, look at these. He's on a call every morning. So when he graduated, our first thing was like, look, Steven, if you're going to do this Cutco thing, the last thing you're going to do is you're not going to sleep in until 10 o'clock and then play Xbox all day and then maybe work a couple hours. Like, you're going to have to really work. So what we started seeing was every morning he's up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. He's going to the gym. He's coming home. He's getting on these calls with you guys where you're scripting, where you're helping each other out. So you're in a community on Zoom and you're helping, maybe your friend didn't get a sale or something, or he had an objection, and, it allows Steven to be a leader and help somebody where, maybe he excelled in an area, and vice versa too. Cause I hear the calls and I hear, Steven saying, I didn't really do good on this. What could I have done better? And another kid will, chime in and say, hey, why don't you try this? I also feel like when you're an entrepreneur, I think, or when you're in business for yourself, one of the first things that happens is, I feel like a lot of people fail because they can't stay on a schedule. So when you're working from home, you're kind of working from home, and then you're going to do something, and then you're, playing with your brother or going outside. I feel like you guys teach them how to be independent, yet still have a schedule. And I feel like that's always, it's even a struggle for me to do the time blocking stuff, because I get caught up in stuff that, I probably shouldn't be during my work day. And that, I think that's really important. That's a huge foundational piece that he's going to take with him forever.
So nice to hear.
Yeah. And then when we went to the awards ceremony, I gotta say, I was blown away, because we've never seen that side of Cutco, and I had no idea about how it's not just about selling knives. And the leadership in Cutco, in my opinion, they're more concerned with growing these kids, not keeping them there. So the opportunities that they have to, hey, come work here and learn a bunch of stuff during the summer and then go off to college and take that with you, it's just amazing. Like, you didn't really hear a lot of the whole, we're so awesome because, there was a lot of awards because some of those kids are really doing great. I mean, they're making a lot of money, the kids that choose to stay there and make it a career. So there's, they have an option, right? They have an option to just do it part-time and then go back to college. And then they always have a Cutco family when they come home from college, or they can do like Steven's doing and staying in it and maybe staying with Cutco for a very long time and, maybe being on the leadership team at some point years down the road.
It's true. It creates options. And I love what you just said, because we're equipping these young people for the real world. We're using like, some of the names, Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning. We're taking his principles, who's a Cutco alum, and applying it on these morning workshops. And, John Berghoff, Cutting Edge Sales, another GoBundance guy. Like, we're taking his philosophies and teaching it for sales and appreciation inquiry. I mean, we're taking these great business owners, John Rulin with Giftology, and teaching them how to use gifts. I love Steven went and took some pie servers and the pies and got them engraved. And oh my gosh, what a great strategy of showing appreciation to your clients. Like, absolutely, absolutely. The reverse trick-or-treating during Halloween. Are you kidding me? Like, no, we're giving you a treat this year. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, so many cool concepts that as partners, from business leader to parent and vice versa, we're collectively making a positive impact on these young people. And when they are in their 20 to 24 to 30-year-old range, they just have such a strong foundation to build it even higher for their 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond. And we're just setting, essentially what we do is setting them up for people like you. So we take the 17 to 24-year-olds, mold them, let them think, their fragile minds, let them think in the self-development space, let them approach life and business with time management and goal setting and autonomy and control, and that, like, avoiding that victim mentality and like oh, I deserve this because, that entitlement mentality, and really helping them shape and mold them from 17 to 24. And then it's like, all right, now here, let's pass it to the Keller Williams of the world. Let's pass it to the, all these big companies, the Apples and the Facebooks and whoever, Googles, wherever else they go, or they start their own brands, they start their own business, or if they want to go to college, they're like, I'm ready to go be a doctor. I'm ready to go be an attorney now. I have the mind to go sit in the classroom and learn all this stuff now because they created such a strong foundation of resiliency. So I love everything that you just said, Nicole.
And yeah. if I want to brag Please. One more time, because or kind of tell you something. It's very hard to have that conversation that my kid's not going to college with other parents. And what we experienced was, your kid's a senior and I'm very involved in the school, and they would say, oh, where's Steven going to college? And I said, well, he's not. And just their whole demeanor, the body language goes, oh, like, really? What is he going to do? He's going to sell knives? And you go, yeah. And then you question yourself as a parent, are you doing the right thing? But I was at a parent meeting on Wednesday, and one of Steven's friend's parents approached me because he has a younger kid at the school, and he said, hey, Steven, it looks like Steven's doing really well. And I said, yeah, I'm so proud of him. He's opening up his office in Sarasota in May. We're just so excited. And he said, you know what? My older son sold Cutco his senior year, and he did very, very well. And now he's an attorney because he ended up going to the University of Florida, getting his law degree. And he was telling me how much he learned from selling Cutco and being involved in the organization, because he got to the point where he was also training people, and that how you guys helped them train other kids helped him in what he's doing right now as an attorney. So that was a really cool conversation to have, being that a lot of the conversations that I do have is, Steven's not going to college.
Is Steven just put Cameron Romali? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah,
Cam was the best, of course. I loved.
I was talking to his dad.
Oh my gosh, Cameron was great. He played football for Tarpon, and he was. Oh, I'm friends with Cameron on Facebook, so shout out to Cameron. And his dad is so cool. I met his dad too. Such nice people. Very philanthropy driven. I remember they did the golf tournament, such nice people. That's so cool. I love that story. That's great, Nicole. Thank you so much for your time. I really can't thank you enough for your support with Steven, what you're doing with volunteering with the schools. Like, gosh, and here's my take for whatever it's worth. Any of the parents that do come out and say, really, what? No school, this or that? Like, anytime someone says that, they're projecting their own uncertainty onto us. And it takes so much courage for you and any other parent to stand their ground and say, I believe what I believe. And I'm not pushing my belief on everyone else, but I believe what I believe, and I trust this. And if I'm wrong, I know that my husband, my son have enough resiliency to recover, even if we're making the wrong decision. But I do believe that I'm making the right choice. And to have the courage to do that is just remarkable. And the judgment's going to happen. The opinions are going to happen no matter where you go, wherever we go. And to the parent who has that judgment or has that opinion, I would just say, that's totally fine. You're okay to have that opinion. You believe what you believe because of your surroundings too. But I would really invite you to have an open mind to what the alternatives are because of the trends, because of the statistics. They don't lie. The trends are really alarming. So I would just look at those and just say, is that the best choice? Maybe, but are there other options? So is there anything, Nicole, that we could do if anybody wanted to, support you or ask you any more questions, or was like, all right, Nicole, I didn't want to ask you this publicly, but Mike didn't ask you this, but I really am curious, like, how could some people find you, or, see what you're into, if they wanted to support the veterans alternative, if they wanted to, support or learn about Keller Williams or learn about your sales team. If someone listening says, I have a 26-year-old that wants to get into real estate, I wanted them to, meet with, Miss Nicole and see what she's up to, or see what her team is up to, or like, how could some people get in contact with you if they wanted to continue this conversation with you?
Yeah, so we actually did start our brokerage in January. So we're no longer with Keller Williams. We are Lock and Key Realty. I am on Facebook. You can reach me at Nicole@Dufala.com, Dufala.com. Anything I can help with, or if anybody has any questions, I love to talk to parents about vector marketing and Cutco, because I'm just such a fan. And even Nathan, the 12-year-old, is he asked me yesterday, when can I start at Cutco? And I said, oh honey, a couple more years.
5 years, we'll get them.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So Nicole@Dufala, you said Nicole@Dufala.com, is that what you said?
.com.
.com or Nicole Dufala. And you also have your Facebook page too, the Nicole Dufala Watkins wife, mom, real estate. It's like something that's really cool, right? I don't know.
I think if you just go on Facebook and type my name, you'll find me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate your time. And thanks again. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks,
Cool.
Mike.
And for everybody else that's listening in and staying tuned, I just want to let everyone know that we are on a movement. Like, that's what we do as community leaders. And when I say we, I'm talking about business owners, parents, just anyone that's in the personal growth space, anyone who's starting their personal growth journey. If they're starting self-development and they want to create a bigger life for themselves, but like want to make sure the foundation is built. Here's what I'll tell you. I have a lot of tools that are going to be coming out there, a lot of free opportunities for you to like get some videos and some books and just e-learning tools. So just be on the lookout for this. Because granted, there are the 12-year-olds out there that aren't going to be able to sell Cutco, and then there are the 24-year-olds out there that are in their other spaces. Like, I want to support as much as possible. So if you have a story, if you have a conversation that you want to have with me, that you want to get broadcasted, shoot me a message. I'm really committed to helping as many people on this personal growth journey as possible. So thank you for your time, your energy. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.